So it's Sunday, the 29th of June, as I'm sitting here getting ready to shoot this video. And I'm really excited because the first part of the year has been amazing. So many great books as I looked over the list of books I read in 2029. So this freakout tag, guys, nothing to freak out about. This is going to be easy. Some amazing books. Let's get right into it. Best books so far this year. And there were a few. There were a few that I was thinking about as my favorite book of the year. I want to mention The Terror, which is not my favorite book of the year so far, but it was close. The Terror by Dan Simmons of Hyperion fame, of course. The Terror was fantastic, a story of exploration, a real story of survival, story of death, of defeat, or rather of nature prevailing over the hopes of men. Story that also mixes supernatural very nicely with the actual events that happened on this expedition. But it didn't win because Algebraist by Ian M. Banks knocked it out of the ballpark. Sometimes when you read a book that you have no idea what it's about, no expectations, really, and it's really good, it elevates it even more because you didn't expect it to be so good. And that was the case with The Algebraist. It's a book written by Ian M. Banks, who of course is famous for his Culture series. And I've read 4 books in the Culture series and I loved all of them. This is a standalone outside of the Culture, outside of that universe that he so beautifully crafted. But it's just as good. It's fantastic. And I wish he was still alive because I am pretty sure he would have written more books in this world. It's a space opera, huge scope, big stakes, great character development, fantastic aliens, dwellers. They live on this gas giants. They live within the gas giants also. Every, I don't know, few pages, your mind might be blown by some idea as you're trying to imagine what it would be like to try to rendezvous with someone, not on the surface of a planet, but somewhere deep within the planet. Fantastic story. Not enough people are talking about Ian M. Banks to begin with, but the Culture is well known if you're a science fiction reader. Algebraist, I don't hear many people talking about it, except for me, for Whitney, and for Sam, because we read it together on a buddy read and we all enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, I can safely recommend to you Algebraist because I'm backed by some great booktubers in that opinion. So I feel good about this choice for sure. Best sequel. I didn't read too many sequels, so what can I tell you? State of the Art, another Ian M. Banks book, is just the next book in the Culture, and it's actually short stories. You could call that a sequel, and I liked the titular story within that book. Slade House by David Mitchell was a lot of fun. It's a short book. It's not a sequel to Bone Clocks, which I loved, by the way. Bone Clocks was close to the top of the list of my favorite books of the year, by the way. The Terror, Bone Clocks, Algebraist. There are a few others, but Slade House was a good one. Just easy, fun read, well written. Like all books, I think, by David Mitchell, they must be well written because he is a fantastic author, fabulous voice. So Slade House, I'm gonna call my best sequel of the year, but Bone Clocks. Read Bone Clocks. New release, or actually the new release I haven't yet read. So Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Naylor is a new release that I have not yet read, but I want to read. I read Naylor's first 2 books and I like them both. I didn't maybe love them. They're not like an all-time favorite. They're not going to get on any list, but I like them both. Well written, well researched, different voice, proper science fiction also. So Ray Naylor's Tusks of Extinction is a short one and a novella. But his first book that he made quite a splash with was The Mountain in the Sea, which I thought was interesting. I like that one a lot. So I'm looking forward to reading this one, Where the Axe is Buried. I've heard from Whitney from Secret Sauce that it's a good one, and I value her opinion greatly. So thank you, Whitney, for that. And I will be reading it. As far as I did read some new releases, this isn't even a question that is on the Freakout tag, but I did read James, which was fabulous. The retelling of Huckleberry Finn. I thought it was really good. Here's an example. I thought it was going to be better because of all the hype. Kind of the opposite of The Algebraist, right? Here, the James, I thought it was going to be just incredible. And it was really good, but I think maybe slightly overhyped. Ministry of Time was a good one. science fiction story, time travel, bringing somebody back, someone basically who's going to die in the past. You bring them back and kind of save them, right? Because since they're dying, you bringing them back into our timeline is not going to affect anything, because if you bring them back right at the moment when they were going to die, they would have died. So nothing changes in that timeline, right? And guess what? The person brought back, or one of them, the main person, is someone who features in The Terror by Dan Simmons. So it's an actual person who took part in this expedition into the Arctic to find the Northern Passage. Uh, it was great because of that. And it was a good story, but it wasn't perfect. There were things that I didn't like about it as well. Kind of a mixed bag, but worth reading for sure. Ministry of Time. We Used to Live Here would be my favorite release. Again, there isn't a question in the tag, but who cares, right? We can talk about new releases. We Used to Live Here. I forget the author's name now. Shoot, it eludes me. Um, was fun. It's a horror, a proper horror, like kind of creepy. You might be a little bit scared, even a little bit like questioning, as things are like moving, shifting, what's going on as you're reading the book. It could have that effect on you because it's written well. And thank you, Tom Orange. I heard about this book from Tom, and he was raving about it so much that I said, you know what? Why not try a horror? I don't read too many. Stephen King pretty much is the only horror author that I read right now. So I picked it up and I was not disappointed. I liked it a lot. That would be my favorite new release, a book that came out recently. We Used to Live Here. I can recommend it for sure. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So there's really nothing. I was thinking about it. There's only one book that I heard about, and it might either be out just now or maybe it's coming out soon. It's a book, When the Cranes Fly South, by Swedish author Lisa, let me find her name, Ridzen. Ridzen, I think, is the last name. It's a Polish sounding last name, but she is Swedish. And this book won all kinds of awards. Best book of the year in Sweden, When the Cranes Fly South. It's a very, very melancholy kind of a book. I believe it's a book about death. It's a book about dying. It's a book about passing, an older person living in a small village, like a fishing village, I think, in Sweden, with some flashbacks. But it's supposed to be a touching story. It's supposed to be beautifully written. And I think it's the kind of book that I like to mix in with my science fiction reads. So we'll see. I do want to pick it up and read it. Biggest disappointment. This is pretty easy. There were two books that I thought about right away when I was thinking about what have I been disappointed with. The Tommyknockers by Stephen King. I thought it was atrocious. It was bad. Of course, this was written at a time where Stephen King was heavily into all kinds of drugs and drinking, alcohol, binging and writing. And this book just was, to me, it was all over the place. Way too long also for what it was, for the story that he was trying to tell. I didn't like it. But my worst or biggest disappointment would be Calculating Stars by Marianne Koval. I don't know. So bad. I started reading it. I could not get through it. I DNF'd it very early, maybe too early. I feel like I didn't really give it a proper shot, honestly. I just got pissed, I don't know, like 30 pages in and just like tossed it. I wanted to read it. It was always like on my distant TBR, but then the author was coming to my local bookstore for promoting her new book. And I was like, oh, this could be great. Perfect time. I'll read the book. If I like it, or if it's okay, at least I'll go and meet her, maybe pick up another book of hers, talk to her, get an autograph, whatever, the typical, get the book signed. But I hated it so much. I don't want to go listen to her. So yeah, it didn't work out. Biggest disappointment. Let me know what your favorite book of the year so far has been, or the biggest disappointment. I'm curious. Or are there some science fiction books specifically that you are waiting for in the second half of the year? Because there's really nothing that I'm kind of thinking about. Let me know, please, 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 please. Biggest disappointment we talked about, price. Where this was easier in some ways, but also more difficult because there were more books that surprised me in the positive sense of the word. I have to say, The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov, Thank you, Whitney, again. This was a gift. The Gods Themselves was incredible. The Terror, I have to mention it again. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. Any of those three books, my biggest surprises of the year. The next question, right after biggest surprise, where I mentioned Bone Clocks, is favorite new author. And this is going to be David Mitchell. A lot of great authors I read this year, but the one who's new to me this year, whose books I have not read previously, David Mitchell is the one that I have to mention. Incredible writing chops. His way of telling the story, in my opinion, is fantastic. He is able to trim all the fat. The books like Bone Clocks, Cloud Atlas, which I'm excited to read at some point. They're not small books, but it feels like every word matters in his books, and I like that. The stories are great. The framing that he uses are very interesting. I know in Cloud Atlas he's telling these stories kind of in chronological order, and then gets to and then it goes back and finishes each story going out. I made a mess of explaining that, but you probably know. You've probably read Cloud Atlas. You know what I mean. Like there's, I think, 7 stories or whatever, and we get like the beginning of each, and then the middle story, we get the whole thing, and then we get like the back end of each one. Oh my God, I really should script these. Anyway, David Mitchell, my favorite new author. He is fantastic, fantastic. Now, of course, James was written by Mr. Everett, who I also want to read more from. Erasure. There are a few others, but yeah, David Mitchell. Newest fictional crush. So I don't really have crushes on fictional characters from books. Movies, that's a different story. I do have crushes on movie stars sometimes. I've had them in the past anyway. Hello, Emma Stone. But I do not have a fictional crush. I'm sorry. I'm just going to skip this. But newest favorite character. I do have some characters that I enjoy. There are quite a few of them. I could name few from the books I talked about, but I will go to different books here, and I will say Jean Laflambeau from The Quantum Thief was fantastic. It is like a legendary thief. Deals with technologies. Like quantum physics, he can manipulate. A fantastic, fantastic protagonist. Very nuanced, also very well written. Good book to great book, actually. And guess what? He's not my favorite, though. I have to, if I'm going to give my newest favorite character to somebody, it's to Glokta from The Blade itself. Yes, I read a fantasy book this year. I didn't love it. I didn't love The Blade itself, but I loved Glokta. Whenever he was there, I was a happy boy. Glokta was fantastic. Definitely morally great, to say the least. But his humor, his sarcasm, his wit, the way he carries himself, his confidence despite his disabilities, amazing. Glokta, if you've read, you know. Am I going to continue this series? I think I will. I think I'm going to continue it at some point, but I didn't love book 1. Joanna tells me that Joanna from Joanna Reads, hey Joanna, if you're watching, has told me that I should continue because it does get better, and book 2 specifically. So I will. I'm committing to reading, going on with the series. But yeah, and if nothing else, I can't wait to get back to reading about Glokta. Book that made me cry. I haven't cried this year. I will say I have cried reading books previously. I've had tears. I've been moved. I've been emotional about books. But this year, none of the books really made me cry. The closest, I suppose, James. There was some sadness. There's some sad moments, some difficult moments. Anytime you're reading about slavery, it can be difficult. It can be touching. Pale Blue of the Hills by Kazuo Ishiguro. There were some moments that also were very emotionally resonating with me in that book. Where a lot of it deals with post World War II Japan. So the post atomic reality that people in Japan faced, especially those who were near the explosions in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, specifically Nagasaki in this case. And the changes that the Japanese society was going through, and the rift that appeared between kind of the older, conservative, traditional Japanese men and younger ones who wanted to westernize, who wanted to open themselves up. Japan is very kind of insular society anyway, but back then, that much more so. Anyway, so I didn't cry. The book that made me happy. Well, happy. That's interesting. Happy if the question is like laugh out loud happy. Um, I did read Bobbyverse book one, but I didn't laugh. I didn't love it. I thought it was okay, but kind of a waste of time. I thought for me, could be a palate cleanser, could be kind of this light read, but it wasn't funny. It needed to be something more. So books that made me happy, I would say Pandora's Star made me happy. Not in the sense that I was laughing happy, but in the sense that it was such a good read. And it's a long book. I was afraid. I had some trepidations going into Pandora's Star by Peter F. Hamilton, but I was happy. I was happy because it was good, even though there was just maybe a little bit too much happening, too many characters, too many threads that needed to be tied together. I was happy because the book was good. The storyline was fantastic. Aliens were great. And oh boy, I've heard from few booktubers directly about chapter 18. I've heard from Jonathan from Words in Time. I've heard from Whitney once again, who read the book not too long ago, that she had a great time reading the book, and specifically chapter 18 blew her mind. So, and I've heard from many others just watching videos. And guess what? So this was a situation, the opposite of Algebrai's, right? Here I was expecting this, I was building up, and I got to chapter 18. I was like, oh shit, I have so many expectations for this to be amazing. It's probably going to suck because of those expectations. It's how can this chapter live up to my high expectations? It did. It lived up to it. It was incredible. What a chapter. It's a chapter that could almost stand alone. Like if you don't want to read the book, read the chapter. I don't recommend it. I recommend you read the whole thing, obviously. And there will be some things that you will not understand if you just read the chapter. But hey, honestly, if you have no interest in reading the whole book, reading the chapter is interesting. And I don't want to say anything about it for fear of spoiling it. But something at the beginning of that chapter, something starts and develops, and then it kind of, we get to the point where we were reading previously. But if you read that, you will still, I think, kind of get what's going on. Fantastic, fantastic. That chapter should be like, if there was a Hugo or a Nebula award for the best chapter, it would win that award easily. So yeah, I was very happy that Pandora's Star actually lived up to the expectations. Most beautiful book this year that I purchased, that I got, well, Solaris. There's a new edition that came out. It didn't arrive. It should be home. It should be at my home already. It was supposed to come in June. It's a bit delayed. It's most likely I'm gonna get the book physically in July, but it's stunning. So I'll mention it here. I'm really excited to get a copy of Solaris, one of my all-time favorite stories by Stanisław Lem. So I can't wait to get my hands on it, and I will shoot a video and show you that book when it does arrive. What books do I need to read before the end of the year? This is the last question. Before I answer the question, I'm going to ask you to comment. I love comments. I'll answer all of them. I love to engage with you guys. Leave a like as well. Subscribe if you haven't. It would mean a lot to me. And let me know, about some of your favorite books of the first part of the year. But the question, what do I need to read? More from Ian M. Banks. So at least one more culture book this year. For sure, that's happening. Maybe also I want to read something by Ian Banks. So we're going to get rid of the M and talk about his literary work, as Ian Banks' Wasp Factor is a book that I have, and it's on my TBR, and I would like to get to it also sometime this year. We'll see. So perhaps two from Banks at least. I also want to read Cloud Atlas because Mitchell is my favorite new author of this year. And when you have someone with whose writing you resonate so strongly, you want to read more. And Cloud Atlas, this is the exciting part, is most people feel it's his best book. So reading it this year will be, I think, incredible. Having read Bone Clocks, Slade House, he's such a great author. I've been doing that with other authors who have recently become my favorites, like Ishiguro. I started reading Ishiguro maybe a year and a half ago, and I've read quite a few of his books. Claire Keegan, another author who I really enjoy reading. So there's been so many amazing authors and it's been a great reading year for me so far. And I'm really hoping that the second half of the year will continue to be just as exciting as the first part of the year has been. It's been an awesome reading year, and I can't wait to share more of my thoughts with you in the next 6 months. So that's it for now. Bye.